All right, ladies and gentlemen, this will be our last, voiceover as far as PowerPoints or Google Slide presentations we have for Reconstruction for this entire unit. And so, like I told you, I promise this coming week you're going to start seeing some more of my face. We'll do a flip chart. I even have a whiteboard I brought home and some markers and stuff like that, and we'll hold like a little mini class session. That way you can watch that on YouTube, and it'll be something a little different than just listening to me talk over this type of thing. So let's jump right into it because I don't want to waste your time or mine. I'm ready for bed. It's kind of late while I'm filming this thing. Okay, let's see. Reconstruction review. Yes, that's a picture of me right there in the background. Yay, good times. We're just going to go straight down through it. All right, and I'm going to make sure that our test comes straight off of this thing as much as possible. And we'll see how it goes. What exactly the test is going to look like. Are we going to do Mastery Connect? Are we going to do something different? We'll see. But if you study this, it's going to take you there. It's going to get you to the right spot. So let's do this thing. All right. Number one, what was the 10% plan? Now, you remember we talked about this during presidential reconstruction, hence the parentheses with presidential reconstruction. 10% of a state's population must take an oath of loyalty to be readmitted to the Union. Duh, right? So, in other words, what we talked about was Abraham Lincoln's original plan was, hey, I want to make it easy for states to get back into the Union. Only need 10%. If you do a 10% of your population that swears an oath, yep, sorry about that, want to be back in the Union, boom, you're back in. Number two, what were the requirements of presidential reconstruction? Well, there's one other component to it. So 10% of you say, yes, sir, we want to be back in the Union. Oh, and by the way, please pass the 13th Amendment, freeing the slaves. Okay. And also, plantation owners had to ask for a presidential pardon. Really easy. All you did was say, yo, Prez, I need to be pardoned. I did have slaves. I did this. I did that. There was some mistreatment type stuff going on. Ask for presidential pardon. It shall be granted. Okay. You ever heard of it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission? It's that type of deal. They weren't expecting, we're not going to retroactively punish anyone. Just ask for permission. The president will pardon. Okay. Number three, we're going to list 5 things that the Freedmen's Bureau did for those affected by the war. Yes, Sydney, it's called the Freedmen's Bureau. Bureaucracy, bureaucrats, all right, people that make your life terrible, like at the DMV. All right, anyway, the Freedmen's Bureau. List 5 things they did for the people affected by the war. A, provide clothing. B, food. C, jobs. D, help families get back together. And E, A, B, C, D, E, providing some schooling, some education, like what we're doing right here for you guys. So that education was very, 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 very important. And the kiddos, not just the kiddos, but the adults as well, needed to learn how to have some basic skills so that they could be employed, since the plantation was kind of a thing of the past, and then it was also not that great with the sharecropping. We'll get to that in a minute. Number 4, list the 3 provisions of the Reconstruction Acts. Simple ones, right? 3 of them, three big ones. Wiped out state governments. Hey, those old corrupt governments, goodbye. See you later. Bye. 2, military occupation of Confederate states. They split them up into those 5 different districts. Oh, by the way, there they are, 5 different districts. Like you had Virginia, North and South Carolina, so on and so forth. There's a map in one of the lessons you can go back and look at. But military occupation, martial law type stuff declared. Soldiers are now the police, and we're going to divide it up into districts and separate it like that. All right, number 5, how was South Carolina divided after the Civil War? The South, it was divided into those 5 military districts. Go back and look at that map. Like I said, Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina was one. Florida, Georgia, Alabama. Then you had like Texas, Louisiana. It was a whole thing. Anyway, go back and take a look at that map. Let's see. What law, act of Congress was President Johnson accused of breaking during his impeachment trial? Tenure of Office Act. Don't you know what? Don't even get wrapped up around the axle about that one. That won't be a test question. Don't worry about it. All right. But it's not that important. But basically, his impeachment, there's really only ever been 2 presidents impeached until just now with Donald Trump, now that we've hit 3. But remember, impeachment does not mean you've been removed from office. Impeachment just means, hey, maybe something bad was going on. We should have a trial, right? So if the House impeaches you, then the Senate holds a trial. Well, Johnson was impeached, but he was not removed from office. So let's keep going here. Why was the period after the Civil War called Reconstruction? Well, kind of duh, right? Rebuilding the infrastructure, there was a lot of rebuilding. What does war do? It destroys, it tears down. Okay, it hurts things. So we had to rebuild stuff. We had to rebuild society and make it right again because there was a lot of social wrongs going on before that. Had to rebuild the government because it was literally torn in half, right? Half the country. And rebuilding infrastructure, many railroads, many bridges, many buildings and homes destroyed, absolutely destroyed. Remember Sherman's March to the Sea, and even more things beyond that. This war was all over the Eastern Front, and look, it was a lot of damage. Had to be fixed. Um, the equivalent of billions of dollars worth of damage in modern money. I'm talking billions, if not more. What was the Gilded Age? Why was it called the Gilded Age? We'll see if this makes it on the test. It was called this because most people were concerned with making money instead of doing what was right. Gilded. You ever, like, your Bible has oftentimes has gold gilded pages. The edges of the paper look gold, and that's kind of what gilding looks like. And that's what it's talking about. It's just a funny phrase used to refer to a time when people were more concerned with their pocketbook than they were with doing the right thing. All right, and so trying to wrap their lives in gold, so to speak. All right, list the issues facing plantation owners after the Civil War. Plantation owners lost a large part of their wealth as well as their labor because a lot of them did not really know. And that's not really a good answer. As a matter of fact, I'm going to change that. Did not were not able to work the farm, so they were not able to work on the farm alone. Because think about this. You once had a couple hundred slaves to do this labor. Now, what is it? You, your wife, and two kids? Like, it's not possible. So they turned to sharecropping. Okay, it's not that these people are ignorant. Now, some of the plantation owners could have been ignorant, but you would have still had like a taskmaster. You would have some sort of a manager that would know how to do this, but you just don't have any labor anymore, right? So they turned to sharecropping. What is sharecropping? Landowner that makes a contract with the farm worker, okay, probably a former slave or some poor white person, um, to work their land in return for a house, farm tools, seed, and fertilizer. At the end of the year, the tenant is the person staying there. They received a fraction of the profit, so maybe like a little 10% cut, if that, probably even smaller. And hey, you got a roof over your head and food in your belly and clothes on your wife and kids' back, right? That's kind of the idea, all right? Trade off. Let's see. Number 11. Which social group was not directly affected by the emancipation of the slaves? Well, small farmers. Small farmers were already competing with big plantations, and you know they had to maintain that level of competitiveness back then. So, what's really the difference at this point? As a matter of fact, there's a little bit more overhead at that point for the big plantations, because now you at least had to pay your workers something. So that actually probably made the poor people a little bit more relevant in the market, being able to sell their product at a more competitive price. Let's see. Why did most Northerners come to the South after the Civil War? Three big things, guys: politics, economic opportunities, and like to be teachers and missionaries. Right? They saw this opportunity to make money. Some saw this opportunity to grab power. Some saw this opportunity to come and change the world and be a teacher or a missionary and preach the gospel. All right, the gospel. They had to, do something. Had to do something. A lot of times when there's big tragedy in the world, people feel like they got to do something. Look, trust me, you're about to see it right now with this COVID-19 thing. So, number 14, list the rights given under the new South Carolina Constitution in 1868. Three big things: women could hold property, divorce was now legal, and all men could vote and participate in politics. Not them women, no. Not the women folk. No. Just men. Okay? Just men, regardless of what you look like. But I digress. Number 15, list the four colleges created to educate African Americans after the Civil War. We got Claflin, Benedict, Allen, and Avery. Historical black colleges, still there, still available. Cool stuff. Check it out. Look into them. They're still prominent here in South Carolina. Let's see. Number 15, list the 3 hate groups formed during Reconstruction. You should definitely know the Ku Klux Klan, KKK. Bunch of interesting fellas there trying to do vigilante justice, even though it wasn't really justice to begin with because, well, no one had committed a crime. But red shirts, we talked about them earlier, and there's even a picture in one of the PowerPoints with the type of uniform jacket they would wear. And then the riflemen. Creative name, right? We carry rifles, the riflemen. Number 16, what was the KKK Act? It gave the president power to suppress state disorders and to suspend the right of habeas corpus. So we already talked about it. It was such a major issue that they gave the president executive law enforcement power to use like the military to come and crush these types of activities that the KKK was carrying out. You got to think though, they were like lynching people and things like that. And if you don't know what that is, take a look, Google it, do a quick Google search, and you'll see what's going on. People being hung. It was terrible. It was terrible. And they were going around masquerading this as justice for people when not really. Were there a couple things that happened? Yeah. Was justice ever served by these people at some point? Maybe. But when 5% of your activity is legitimate and the other 95% of it is illegitimate, illegal, and very, very violent against innocent human beings, you kind of got to go. You know what I mean? Yeah, it was ridiculous, and the driving force behind what they were doing is totally immoral. So, got to get rid of them dudes. Let's see, 17. What was the Hamburg massacre, where 6 African American militia members were killed by a white mob? And that was right there near Augusta, Georgia. Hamburg, right there near North Augusta, just close to the Georgia line. Number 18. How did hate groups react to the KKK Act? It angered the vigilante groups. They're like, how dare you send the military to crush our little rebellion and murder us swine, hordes of people that ride around in horses with bed sheets on the top of their head to go kill people. They were angry about it because they liked riding around on horses and bed sheets killing people, apparently. So, it angered them, made them upset that they would use the military against them. 19. What was created as a result of the Transcontinental Railroad? Time zones. Right? So when you can start moving between locations so fast that you run into the issue of time, we needed a way to organize it. And so the continental United States is now broken down into 4 time zones, right? You have Eastern, you have Central, you have Mountain, and Pacific. All right. So Eastern, which is what we're in. All right. Then you have the Central time, like the far side of Tennessee and the Ozark Mountains. Then you have Mountain, which is like the Rocky Mountain area, Colorado stuff. And then you have Pacific. So you got the 4 time zones. That way the sun is in approximately the correct location in the sky at all times. That's kind of the idea behind this, okay? And so standardized way to measure time. How did the railroads help? Major cities grew up along railroads, guys. If you have transportation and logistical support, you good to go. Okay, that's like why major cities are often hubs for interstates and things like that. We have 2 or 3 interstates coming in one place. It just makes it's convenient, and convenience breeds economy, right? So, 21. Why did the second industrial revolution not have as big of an impact on South Carolina? The plantation elite looked down upon industry. So we were used to that agrarian South where agriculture ruled and plant the crops, grow the crops, sell the crops. And so the second industrial revolution, it didn't really come to the South for a while. South Carolina did focus, however, on the textile industry. We'll get into that later. Probably won't see test questions on these 2. List 3 facts about working in a mill. Long hour, low pay, very, very, very dangerous. Probably going to get your hand or arm or thumb or toe cut off. Let's see. Name another industry that cropped up in South. Oh yeah, phosphate. Don't even worry about that. You won't see it on a test. Don't even worry. As a matter of fact, let's just X-nay the 22A because no, right? Good, because reasons. Now, let's talk about our vocabulary real quick. 13th Amendment. 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment are Reconstruction amendments. The 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment are Reconstruction amendments. Okay? Got it. 13th Amendment, it outlawed slavery and involuntary servitude unless used as punishment for a crime in the United States. Duh. Okay? So, in other words, unless you were a felon, you're liberty is not going to be limited or curtailed in any way. You're still free. But if you run around murdering people, we can still throw you in jail and make you work on the chain gang. Hey, that's pretty fair. All right. 15th Amendment. The right to vote cannot be denied on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. So no matter what your station, if your life dictated that you were a natural-born United States citizen, or you had lived here long enough to become a United States citizen, then you could vote. As long as you were a dude. Had to be a dude. Okay? There you go. Black codes. Black code, pretty obvious. Any code of law that defined and especially limited the rights of a former slave after the Civil War. That one ain't rocket science, kids. Freedmen's Bureau of Refugees. This one's for Sydney again. Freedmen and abandoned lands. It was set up during the Civil War to help those affected by the war. So it's a bureaucratic task force, essentially a government agency that helped former slaves. Boom. There you go. 14th Amendment, it guarded equal rights as citizens to former slaves. So, in other words, equal protection of the law, that Dred Scott case issue, the 14th Amendment said, done with that. If you're now a citizen, you can sue in court, do everything else. You have all the rights of being a citizen. You can't be a half citizen. That doesn't even make sense. All right, so the 13th, 14th Amendment took 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment took care of slavery. Reconstruction Acts, the acts of Congress providing for reorganization of the former Confederate states and setting forth the process by which they were to be restored and to representation in Congress. Simple stuff. It's just laws passed by Congress basically telling how Reconstruction was going to go. All right. They still do that all the time. They pass budget laws all the time. All right. And it sounds funny. They pass a law to pass a budget. Yes. They literally write a law that says this is how we're going to spend the money and this is how much. Same thing here. This is how we're going to rebuild the country. This is how we're going to pay for it. And this is when and where and how we're going to do it. All right. Impeach, to charge the president with breaking a law. Like I said, doesn't mean you've been removed. You've just been charged with it. Okay. You can still go away scot-free. Look, you could get charged with a crime right now, but if we find that you're innocent, then you're free. So that's how that works. Freedmen, men who have been freed from slavery. Do I need to say more? No. Scalawags. These were native white Southerners who collaborated with the occupying forces during Reconstruction, often for personal gain. So in other words, think about like snitches get stitches. All right. They were like, well, the Union Army is probably going to win anyway, so we're just going to turn on our neighbors and be tattletales so that we get good favor with the Union Army, and then we're going to make money and be taken care of and blah, 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 blah. So snitches get stitches type stuff. They were snitches. Carpetbaggers. A Northerner who went to the South after the Civil War and became active in Republican politics. There you go. Easy day. Red shirts. Democrats who supported Wade Hampton III. They rode through the state wearing red shirts. All right. He ran for governor. And did he win? I don't know. You should look it up. It's in the slides. All right. Compromise of 1877. If Rutherford B. Hayes was elected president, then federal troops would be removed from the South and it would end Reconstruction. Guys, if you're in the South and you've been under the thumb of the federal troops, the United States Army, for 10 years, are you tired of that? Yes, you are probably tired of that. Okay. Imagine if during the coronavirus, the United States Army came in and started forcing you to stay inside your house during certain hours, and you could only go to the restaurant at between the hours of 10 and 12 in the morning, right? It's just like, no, you're going to get tired of that real quick. Well, that's what was going on. Well, Rutherford B. Hayes basically promised, hey, if you elect me, that's all going to end. So everybody was like, yep, you're elected. You're welcome. All right. Any questions? Nope. Good. All right, guys. You make sure you watch this video, review the slides, do the Kahoot, do the Hawk Focus. God bless. We'll talk to y'all on Monday.